Welcome to my channel. Here I talk about my science career, job hunting experiences and insights and how they could help you. I deliver presentations related to pharma, documentation, quality and microbiology. And I also discuss how what I know can help you either as an employer, a job seeker, a peer or a potential collaborator. Through this channel I hope to show others I know my stuff and also improve on my communication. Perhaps this will inspire you to do something similar or help you in your career. Hi there, I'm Paul Yeatman, a Bachelor of Science graduate and an experienced microbiologist of over 15 years seeking to continue my career after a redundancy, be that in the lab, in production, in quality or other. As well as here, I can be found on LinkedIn, Twitter and my microbiology blog, so be sure to check those sites out for more information on what I can offer you. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. Today I will discuss cover letters and resumes. Since 2008 I have applied for a tad under 300 science roles and interviews have resulted from a tad over 10% of those. So statistically that's pretty good. This comes from a mix of tailored, generic and half-assed cover letters. Post-interview, apparently, the jobs tend to go to somebody internal, only to be re-advertised 6 to 12 months later, or to somebody with more recent experience. Again, these roles get advertised anywhere between 6 and 12 months later, occasionally 3 months. So it makes me wonder about the recruiting process and those selected for the role, but anyway, that's another subject I could talk about. What should a cover letter be like? Okay, there's 3 types of cover letters that I have done. There's the generic or half-assed cover letter, what's called a pain letter, and a cover letter addressing the selection criteria, which can be found most often in the actual job application itself. What are the types of cover letters that I typically use? The general cover letter, which also falls into half-assed, a pain letter, and a cover letter specifically addressing criteria presented within the job advertisement. What interview hit rate has each of these styles of cover letters given me? When I have submitted a general cover letter, about 2 have resulted in interviews. Here the letter is fairly generic and has sometimes been quite informal, and sometimes I've put pretty much no effort into these letters, which explains in part why they generally don't get much hits, but I'm also surprised that at least 2 of them have actually got an interview. When I was between jobs after my redundancy, being required to apply for 10 jobs a week by the government, thanks government, led to a lot of non-enthusiastic, non-science role applications, and most of the generic letters have fallen in here. A pain letter is one where you assume you know the key issues the advertiser has, whether they've stated them or not, and you provide your solution. And I have multiple issues with this style of letter. Unless you work at the company that you're applying for the role at, then it's very doubtful your educated guess as to a problem that may or may not exist and needs solving will be correct, unless the job description specifically states that that is what you're being employed to do. Providing your solution to an issue without being paid to do so is working for free and devalues your knowledge, assuming you even hit the nail on the head, and I never encourage working for free. None of this style of cover letter has ever resulted in an interview, and as these cover letters take more time to write, a 0 hit rate means, well for me at least, that they're a total waste of time. In the majority of cases, which is at least 20 of the 28 interviews that I've logged as attending, have come from cover letters where I have specifically addressed key selection criteria and explained how my knowledge and skills can best be used in the role on offer. For these letters, I respond to 4 or 5 of the key selection criteria showing how what I have done in the past will help me succeed in the role that I'm applying for. And it is important to be able to back up this with a story in car or star format and an interview when you're actually asked about what you've stated you can do. For my cover letters, I have a master written with lots of bullets addressing key selection criteria that years of adverts have stated they are looking for. And when I apply for roles, I trim the master down to something short that fits on a page, which makes my job application process quite efficient these days. Quite a lot of advice recommends that you tailor your cover letter and resume to the role that you're specifically applying for, and I find that having a master both of the cover letter and the resume with a whole long laundry list of what you've done and what you can do, and trimming that down when you're applying for a role really speeds the process up. That means you don't sit there forever trying to figure out what you're going to say for a role. You actually have it written there already, so you just got to trim all the junk out and then apply. That leads me to chat about resumes. What should your resume look like? Should you include an aim or a purpose statement? Should it list everything under the sun that you have done? If you did something in one role, should you repeat this information if you did it in more than one role? So if you did 4 different positions and they all involved, say, validation or documentation, are you going to say you did that in every specific role? I'll chat about how to address that. How long should your resume be? Should jobs where your company was taken over be split into different jobs, or should they be kept as one single entry? Should your resume include references? Should your resume mirror the information on sites such as Seek or LinkedIn or Monster or any of the other job sites? An aim or purpose statement. I say don't include this, as it can give your resume a generic feel, which you don't want, because you want your resume to stand out. What I do is include a summary instead with a pitch that shows my value proposition, along with a quick rundown of my experience and knowledge. So hey, here I am, here's my brief background, skills and knowledge, and how they might be applicable to the role on offer. Should your resume list everything under the sun that you have done, or should it be brief? Certainly don't list everything. You want to whet the appetite of those reading your resume, and studies show that your resume gets read and either dismissed or actioned in 6 seconds flat. If the reader is not going to waste time on your resume, then you probably shouldn't waste too much time either. That being said, you do want your resume to stand out and make an impact, so there's like a juggling impact of how much time you put into your resume to actually get a return on investment. Here I recommend you go nuts on a site such as LinkedIn if you want to get detailed, though you may still not want to overload the reader with excessive information. You want to keep some mystery, and in reality most people will just skim through your information regardless of where they find it. They'd be more interested in finding out what you are like as a person, as opposed to reading through pages and pages of like dry information. In my master resume, I do list everything I've ever done, but I trim it down during the job application process to make my resume look like it's tailored for a specific role. And what this means is that for each role that I state I've done, there's only about 4 or 5 bullet points per role, which is aligned to the key requirements which are listed in the job application. So here again, I've put a lot of time into developing my resume initially. This is over like 20-25 years. So it means that when it comes time to apply for a role, I can just trim out the excess and make the resume appear tailored for the role. This means my application process is efficient and fast. If you did something in one role, should you repeat it in another role? Over the years, I've done multiple roles that have included the same tasks, such as auditing, documentation, testing, validation, and stuff like that. Here I make the assumption that those reading my resume will have an idea about what roles I've held in the past actually entail. So presumably, if I am applying for a role and submitting my cover letter and resume to a laboratory manager, stating I've been a microbiology team leader and a microbiology analyst, the microbiology or laboratory manager or even supervisor will actually have some idea about that role entails. so I don't have to specifically state every single last thing I did. They're going to have some idea that just by default that's what I would have done. What I do is specifically point out projects or key responsibilities in my roles, including evidence and statistics if I have them, to give each role a unique feel and look, and also to align that with what the job advertisement is asking for. If you updated documentation in multiple roles, for example, state the specifics of each role to differentiate them. For example, in one role I might have updated room monitoring diagrams using Visio, and that might have been, say, 20 room diagrams. In another role I might have been part of a documentation review project that updated hundreds of documents using process mapping techniques to align them with the rest of the company, or actually align all the documents themselves. How long should your resume be? Well, ideally your resume is a short little 2 to 3 page, depending on experience of course, document. Referring back to the 6-second rule, 2 pages equal that the person reading it's going to pay maybe 3 seconds attention to both pages. A 3-page resume gets about 2 seconds per page. So for my 3-page resume, I keep the good stuff, that is my career history, on pages 1 and 2, which doesn't guarantee 3 seconds per those pages, but it means that if the person reading the resume is going to actually go back and pay more attention, all the information is on 2 pages, or the good information is on 2 pages. The 3rd page is for training, history and education and interesting tidbits that may support what you've stated in your main resume. Should jobs where your company was taken over be split into ownership or kept as a single entry? Here you could probably do what you like, but I personally would say no. An example I used was in my microbiology team leader role. I state that the work began working for a company called Bristol Myers Squibb Australia, who was then sold to Sigma Australia, and following that they were bought by Aspen Pharma. So it could technically be 3 separate roles or 3 separate companies, but overall the job was the same. And where I sat was the same, so 1 entry. Should your resume have references? All the advice I can find says no. You should not even state that the references are available on request, as it is an assumption that that's what is going to be the deal. There also, at least according to some circles, appears to be less emphasis placed on references these days. Like anecdotally, some people don't even ask for them. And quite a few interviews I've been to, I haven't been asked for them, which that either means that they don't want them because they come across as bodgy, even though I've got to like the final stage interview, or they think that the other person's better. So here I would like to think at least that they don't need references, because they'll just go on how I've acted in the interview and any supporting evidence about me that can be found online, which hopefully things like this form part of that. So those conducting the interviews are more interested if you are a good communicator, come across as knowing your stuff and would fit into the company's culture. The bulk of referees will give you a good reference, as you would have chosen them for this purpose anyway. What that means is that the value of your references are decreased because you're only like cherry picking someone to give you a good spruik. With the internet, a professional web presence would hold more influence than a referral, hence this sort of stuff that I'm doing here. So I try to stay professional online, which is something I try to do, and I definitely separate my personal life online from my professional life. Should your resume mirror the information on sites such as Seek and LinkedIn? About 10 years ago I would have said yes to that. These days I say no. Well, why is this? Primarily maintenance and time costs. Updating your online profile or profiles on job sites to align with your resume can be time intensive and therefore a time sink. And as I say, time can be money. My only recommendations here are to align your branding across any job sites. So for LinkedIn, for Seek, which I've also got a profile on, and my resume, which has my not purpose but my actual history, and also my blog, I would include my elevator pitch on all and have that aligned, and have similar or the same pictures wherever they're relevant, things like that. to go basically give you work, because this isn't branding. If you want to emphasize a skill or skills or an aspect of your career, consider writing an article to demonstrate them. So you can post it online, say on LinkedIn, there's a facility for that. You can do it on your own blog, you could even do videos about it. For example, I developed quality assurance for troubleshooting in and around the home, for example, and I wrote a presentation for that, posted that in text form, also did a video of it. So you can reuse materials in one spot or another. It also helps branding, it also gets you out there, raises your visibility. So that's all good as part of the job search. What I've found is how I meet the selection criteria in bullet form is the best way to format a cover letter. By far, that's been my most successful style of cover letter. This means that a manager or a recruiter can either dismiss or action your job application within the supposed 6 seconds that they bother to give you a submission. After that, they can peruse your resume, which ideally will provide additional supporting evidence to your claim that you can do the job, and also show that you are a better candidate than the bulk of the other applicants. As I've noted before, you should have a good story in either star or car format, preferably car, that's my preference, about anything you say, you did or can do in your resume. And if you're getting a bit fuzzy on what you did do with some of your statements, brush up so you do have a good car story to present next time you're asked. In my next video, I will discuss dressing the part day to day and how that can potentially help you at interview time. So stay tuned for that one. If you have found this video interesting or informative, please subscribe, like, and if you are really keen, share it with others. If you have something to say about this video or perhaps a suggestion for a future topic, please leave a comment. Until next time, this has been Paul Yeatman, a scientist seeking career satisfaction. Kapla!